Counselor Gill. When Sean said the meeting will start shortly, that should have been a clue. All right, I'm signing into the Zoom. Okay, so I'll call the meeting to order for June 3rd. It is Tuesday, June 3rd, not Wednesday, right? Mr. Fletcher, we were confused when the meeting was. I'll call the meeting to order. Got the agenda here. Attendance at the beginning of the meeting is 100%. Everyone's in person, and Councillor Mackay is ready to run with, as usual, the adoption of the agenda. Go ahead.
I don't run anywhere. I wobble. That the June 3rd, 2025 agenda be adopted as presented.
Awesome. I will call for the vote. Voting's closed, and that passes unanimously. So we have a couple of presentations. The first one being an exciting one. We have the Canadian Association of Municipal Administrators here to present the city with our award that we received last week at the CAMA conference. And even more exciting is we have Troy with us here, who we all know really well from Fort Saskatchewan, was elected to the board. How do you say it? Yeah, that you would say elected to the board. How big is the board? Okay. Okay, so you were the only Alberta elected? Congratulations. Unlike the FCM board with 74 board members. Anyway, I'm going to turn it over to you, Troy, because we're all very excited and I appreciate that we could do this here today, not just in Ontario. So you have a, okay. Try again.
Is it on now?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so you have a bit of a presentation, then there's a video.
I've got a couple minutes to speak here and then there's a video and then we'll do a picture.
Okay, and then this is the staff that were heavily involved with this project, so they're all going to come down for a picture, but I'll leave it up to you now. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Hearn. I was telling some of your councillors that I've probably watched hundreds of hours of City of St. Albert council meeting footage, but I've never actually been in this room before, so it's nice. Lots of elevation changes, but I don't watch your council meetings as much anymore. You're a lot less interesting than they used to be, so that's a huge compliment, by the way.
We do have a 5-minute limit here. I'm
yeah.
teasing. I'm teasing.
I'll get going. So as mentioned, my name is Troy Fleming. I'm here to talk to you today as the new CAMA board representative for Alberta. And many of you know me as the city manager for the city of Fort Saskatchewan. For reference, CAMA stands for the Canadian Association of Municipal Administrators. CAMA is a national not-for-profit organization representing a network of municipal professionals in senior management positions. We have close to 1,000 members and we work hard to provide networking, professional development. This recognition program is another example, and a lot of information sharing. And our goal is really to promote excellence in municipal administration. I'm pleased to represent CAMA this morning to present the City of St. Albert with the CAMA Willis Award for Innovation for Municipalities with a population between 20,000 and 100,000. Each year, CAMA honors excellence in municipal administration through the annual awards program, recognizing achievements in 4 unique areas. There's innovation, environmental leadership and sustainability, inspiring workplace, and collaboration with external organizations and municipalities. So these awards celebrate local governments and their chief administrative officers for creative and successful programs, projects, or services. The award promotes professional excellence in municipal administration, sharing success stories to inspire new ideas across CAMA members and other local government managers for implementation in their own communities. Given the diversity of Canada's communities, the awards are categorized by population, so under 20,000, between 20 and 100, and then over 100,000. The evaluation criteria include innovation and creativity, impact on municipal administration, transferability to other local governments, impact on the municipal organization, and sustainability and long-term positive impacts. This particular award, the Willis Award for Innovation, is awarded in recognition of Jack Willis for his contribution to CAMA. Mr. Willis was one of the founding CAMA members and worked in local government in the Winnipeg metro region and helped form CAMA over 50 years ago. This award recognizes programs, projects, or services that demonstrate new approaches to leading, facilitating, or administering, which result in positive changes to local government processes and practices, and ultimately bring outstanding benefits to the organization and to the community. This year's winner of the Camo Willis Award for Innovation for Municipality with a population between 20,000 and 100,000 is the City of St. Albert for the transformation of your emergency management program, leading to an innovative approach to public safety and resilience. And then just me personally, I'd like to congratulate the team of people. I'm assuming it's all the folks here for working on this. And I suspect with projects of this magnitude that it probably touched on a wide variety. Usually things like this will almost impact the entire organization. So great job to yourselves for your leadership and for your great work and for showing other municipalities the way. And then I would just also like to personally thank your CAO, William Fletcher, for his membership and his support of CAMA. And just personally, he's been a fantastic addition to the region. We love having him at the regional CAO table, and he's a strong contributor there. So congratulations to Bill and to the team for your award. Good job.
Thank you, Troy.
Yeah.
So
There's
we
a
have
video
a
we're gonna play
video.
now.
Does it talk a little bit about the program in the video? Okay, good. Because I was gonna say,
Yeah.
can somebody explain this to people who don't understand it? But awesome. Okay, so why don't you guys start making your way down while the video's playing?
Congratulations to the City of St. Albert, Alberta, winner of the 2025 Camo Willis Award for Innovation in the 20,001 to 100,000 population category for their emergency management program. The program exemplifies innovation by introducing transformative change to municipal emergency management practices using 3 key projects. Know Your Zone is the first initiative of its kind in Alberta to utilize ArcGIS mapping technology to create an interactive, real-time evacuation and shelter-in-place map. The Rapid Damage Assessment tool demonstrates creativity by integrating GIS and demographic data to streamline property assessments and recovery efforts. The Everbridge Mass Communication System showcases significant change by modernizing how municipalities communicate during crises. The program has significantly enhanced the municipality's ability to prepare for, respond to, and recover from emergencies. It has improved public safety by enabling faster evacuations and better resource allocation. Internally, the program has strengthened cross-departmental coordination, ensuring a unified response to crises. The sustainable design of the program ensures that it will continue to deliver positive outcomes for years to come and is a model for other municipalities. Congratulations to St. Albert, Alberta, on winning a Camo Willis Award for Innovation.
Oh, really? Everybody just left the chambers, leaving you three up there. Oh, they're coming up. Stab. I mean, that's also always fun. Being mayor of the city makes you proud like every day. I was walking to the bathroom today, looked out at the crosswalk. It's it just makes you proud, and that is super nice. And thanks to Councillor Broadhead. Nothing to do with the actual award, but we have somewhere to display the actual award. And we received, was it the Willis Award that we got 2 years ago?
No, it
Great
was
Nuns?
the Environmental Sustainability and
Yeah,
Leadership
okay.
for Great Nuns White Spruce.
We continue to hit above our weight class and get recognized for the stuff we're doing. And Mr. Fletcher, your leadership has really led the way in that. I know you just love all this accolades, don't you? Okay, sorry to Tara and Holly, we've been talking about the city, but I always take the speakers in the order they registered. So Kama had registered a long time ago to give that award, but you two are up next. So we have Tara McNeil and Holly Chivry, talking about parking issues from Belrose Composite High School, the students. Welcome to council chambers. Okay, there's a 5-minute rule for presentation. I'm sure you know that. So whenever you guys are ready, just start and please feel comfortable. Yeah. I think he's just turning on the mic. We'll give you a few extra seconds. Yeah.
This problem extends beyond mere inconvenience. The high volume of parked student vehicles creates safety hazards, obstructs driveways, hampers emergency vehicle access, and disrupts essential services like garbage collection and snow removal. Many residents constantly find themselves having to carefully maneuver around student vehicles just to exit their own driveway safely. In winter, the situation worsens, with residents needing to actually physically guide sometimes waste management trucks through tight areas, compounded by snow buildup and, of course, poor parking habits. So imagine the significant challenges emergency vehicles would face in these conditions. As we try to beautify our homes and lawns, contractors often have difficulty maneuvering around the student cars and cannot even park in front of our homes. In addition to the safety hazards they create, there's also the problem of speeding in our neighborhood. Students often speed up and down the street. They are distracted as they drive in our neighborhood, often yelling and taunting each other as they pass. They come and sit in their cars at lunch, smoke and eat, throwing their trash out the windows. Many of us in the neighborhood have picked up McDonald's bags and other trash from lawns and streets. Some neighbors have approached students to talk about the speeding, the littering, the parking, and boxing us in our driveways with mixed responses, more often than not, rude responses. Our residents have expressed, one resident has expressed their discomfort from approaching large teenage boys and feeling intimidated by them. This issue is not new. Dunsfield Crescent has already successfully implemented a residential parking permit system, pushing students parking into our area. Now, without a similar program, the problem will continue to shift further, affecting more residents. As you may or may not be aware, Belrose is building onto the school to accommodate another 300 students with no additional parking to accommodate more students. This lack of infrastructure should not be the neighborhoods to carry. Based on the recent parking survey result, the south portion of Dean Crescent, which is the most impacted area due to its proximity to the student walkway, demonstrated a high response rate of 80%. Importantly, 61 of those respondents supported implementing a residential parking permit. Although this narrowly is missing the city's criteria threshold, it clearly illustrates strong support from the residents directly experiencing the most significant issues. However, as the Crescent is considered a whole versus sections, South Dean Crescent is fighting a losing battle as we cannot reach the required number. We have tried unconventional solutions of setting up pylons from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., which did temporarily work, but however, it resulted in warnings of fines from bylaw. Our only other solution is to call bylaw on a regular basis to ticket students. However, not only is this exhausting and frustrating to us, the neighbors, to constantly be calling, it's not an effective use of bylaw services. Often, residents don't call due to sheer fatigue of calling. So we invite you to check with bylaw on stats of numbers of phone calls and tickets that are being issued. Therefore, we propose a practical and fair solution dividing north from South Dean Crescent. We ask that you implement a residential parking permit specifically targeted at Dean Crescent South and Dunsmuir Court, effective Monday to Friday from 8 to 4. Now, this system does not restrict residents or guests. It simply aims to deter non-resident parking, improving safety and quality of life. Without this split of the Crescent, South Dean Crescent will never be successful in implementing a parking permit, as this issue does not affect North Dean Crescent. The other side of the high school, Dunsfield Crescent, has split their crescent from east to west with success, so this is not an unusual request. In closing, we've included additional letters from residents who've asked that their voices be shared with council as well. I trust that you will review them. We respectfully ask for your immediate support to approve and expedite the implementation of residential parking permit program in these most affected areas. Thank you for your attention and support in keeping our neighborhoods safe and accessible.
Well, you did that in 4.5 minutes, so well done.
I went fast. I'm like, oh my God, I only have 5 minutes.
All right, so process-wise is on our agenda. Anyone, a member of council, is allowed to ask questions, and Councillor Mackay is going to be up first. And then we have a chance to ask our administration questions. You answered a lot of my questions that I had for admin about is there history of splitting streets? And I actually personally have no questions because I completely understand. We've dealt with parking issues around high schools before. We've also dealt with it around heavy construction areas, and this is the program and this is why we do it. So appreciate that. And you said you had extra letters?
Yeah, we emailed them. There's a couple extra residential people that knew we were coming and just
Okay.
wanted to say their bit.
Do we know where those are? Oh, we've got them? Okay, good.
I do have a hard copy here.
That's
but it's
okay.
only one.
I've got them in my inbox somewhere. That's good. All right, Councillor Mackay, I'll let you start with the first question.
Hi, I'm the one right down here, where you can't see over that.
Yes, short girl problems. It's okay.
Excellent presentation, by the way. Thank you very much. And thank you for the passion for coming, and I empathize. So is it, so just so that I'm aware, so is the barrier the more the north side of Dean Crescent that is kind of a?
We've all got the map up on our computer.
Yeah. So north side, they're not affected. So really where it has that kind of Dunsmuir Court, that's where they kind of stop parking.
Yeah,
So it's from here all the way to, you know, south side towards the lights, I guess, yeah.
okay. And so, and I've got a Google map up, and I did drive around just so I could kind of orientate myself with it. It's been a while since I've been up right around Dean. So in your letters, is it like, is the cutoff, is it a natural cutoff at Dunsmuir in relation to the, and so do students park along Dunsmuir Court too? as
Yeah,
well?
they do.
Yeah.
When we've talked to bylaw, they've told us if it's not South Dean Crescent calling, it's Dunsmuir calling.
Okay, all right. And so I mean, because there is access, but I guess it's at the north end of the playground of the Ball Diamonds there, right? So.
Yeah, they don't tend to
Yeah.
walk that path. They,
Yeah.
they want the shortest route possible.
Yeah, no, that's true. And have you contacted Belrose School? Can you tell me what is their feedback to you?
So I spoke to the principal on a couple of occasions, very nice gentleman, and he he does say that they do all of what they can, which is part of the problem is like my questions to him is how much percentage of students have parking passes, right?
Right.
And there's only so many parking stalls and they are only for grade 12 students.
Right.
Okay, so they charge a certain amount a year, which is, he said $10 a year. It was nothing. And what they're trying to do is they say that they're very active in looking out, like going out every day and checking to see if people have parking passes and then, trying to, if people that, let's say they only have the first part of the day and they have a parking pass, but the second half of the day it's free, they try to like coordinate. But he said it's almost impossible because you can imagine the first part of the day, everybody wants to be at school, the backhand, they don't want to be there, right? So there's a lot, like if you were to drive by that parking lot, it's empty, you know, at least not in the morning,
Yeah.
but like I said, the first 2 periods are full, and then after that it's dead.
Right.
But we still have people after lunch parking. So he said they're doing all they can, but it's just, obviously, it's just not enough. And he does point out the fact that there's construction and we understand that, but because they're taking up some student stalls, they said. But we have construction workers also parking in our neighborhood too. So there's not enough stalls at this moment. Before the construction happened, this was a problem. It was, because I've been living in that house now for about 15 years. And I just remember basically when Holly moved in, I was like, there was no problems. And I think you're about 6 years in. And then it's just like, it was like a light switch. And it was because we figured out that they got permits in that other Dunsfield, yeah. So then that's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But then, I mean, it's been a problem since then. It's just, you kind of just deal with it. And to be honest, I didn't even know I could be here today. Like this is, we're just our last ditch resort. And we didn't realize that we could actually come here and talk to you guys. And it's a scary process, right? Because we're trying to get people's support. We did the permit, like walking around and talking to people. That was absolutely no fun because there's a lot of support, like in our section. And then on the other section, there isn't. So it's, you know, you have all different reviews, but the principal was very kind. He was very nice and helpful as much as he could be. So.
When you were doing your canvassing, did you go up and down Dufferin Street as well and just see if there's any parking problems there?
Dufferin is the one that's straight from the
Yeah,
lights?
it's just, you kind of.
Main Street, yeah.
Yeah, it's the main one. It's your main one coming into Dean and.
Yeah.
I think it's because of that walkway.
It's the walkway, there's a
Right.
pedway there,
wanna
and
be
they like
closer.
to come and they hang
Yeah.
out there. You know, and there's kind of trees, so they kind of hang out sometimes behind the trees there, eating, smoking,
And we
doing
never,
whatever they're doing.
like, keep in mind, when we started this process about doing the permits, we were told that we had to do a certain area. And that's what we did because that's what we were told.
Mhm.
And by the end of that whole thing, I promise you, we were not willing to talk to anybody else because of the people, like, there were some really rude people and
That's
like
too
all over
bad.
the place.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And because all we were trying to explain to them too is this is just to get a survey. This is not, we're not getting permit parkings if you sign this, but people's minds just, you know, they're all over the place. So anyways, we didn't do what you asked, sorry.
Try running for council and door knocking.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
It would be extremely difficult.
Yeah.
You're brave.
Yeah, no, I don't mean to make light of your concerns because I mean, obviously they're very meaningful to you, so.
Yeah,
And-
I'm considering moving. I'm not gonna lie. It's
Yeah.
to a point where there's nothing I can do and yeah, and I don't want to move. I've been there for 15 years and I love my neighborhood, but yeah, it's just kind of one of those things
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that and I think, and I'll probably ask some questions of administration now.
All right, Councillor Kulik, you're up next.
Thank you. And I had chatted on the phone with Tara and Holly before, just to say, to better understand their situation. So the one question that I hadn't asked before was in your discussions with your neighbors, had you even explained to them that if there was a segmented parking restriction on your end of the street, that potentially that would push the problem somewhere else? So really, people should be thinking about it as a total
Yeah.
group and a full street, or did you have the opportunity to kind of frame it that way with them so they had a better understanding?
absolutely. Even when we were first doing our canvassing, we had sent out made little flyers and brochures. And we did talk with people, and there actually are some people on the north side that
They were
don't-
supportive.
yeah, that were supportive, but, then others were like, well, it doesn't really affect us. And I'm like, yeah, but it could, and they didn't seem, but we did have some people on there that were supportive on the north side as well, but they just didn't seem that, fussed, so.
Okay, that's good, because I'm worried about the segmented approach, and would that work, or would that just push the problem somewhere else? So,
You know what's gonna happen, and I do too, and
Yeah.
we're not oblivious to that. It's just that how else can you, convince people by then talking? And there were people that weren't wanting to talk, like they were kind of just shoving us out of the door. So those people we couldn't have those conversations with. But the ones we did, we explained that. We're just like, we're trying to be a community here and support each other. It's like, if roles are reversed, I'd like to think that I would help people in that situation. But yes, I would like to say that wouldn't happen, but what's gonna happen, and we don't want that, but what are we supposed to do? Yeah.
okay, thanks, and I'm super glad you talked to Peter at the high school, so
Yeah.
at least
Yeah.
you've tried to engage and be positive and,
Yeah.
work with the school directly, so that's great too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
we've had several neighbors call the school, so.
Counselor Mackay has one more question.
Yeah, it'll help me with my question administration. So sorry, forgive me for.
It's good.
When you're in your discussions with the neighbors that don't want it, was the main reason that they just didn't want to get all the permits and have to permit for, I've got a son, I've got a daughter, I got a work truck, or.
Yeah, and we told them that it's not gonna affect evenings and weekends. So it's really just from 8 to 4 when the students are there. So your family should be able to still park on the side. You'll be able to get extra passes if you need them. Like, we had all the, information for that. And yeah, that was like, it did come up and we addressed that, so.
Okay.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
I did get one letter from somebody on the north side of Dean. Just supportive of the kids, but probably she's not experiencing the same level of parking that you are on the south.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, before we go to administration, you're looking for a split between North and South Dean.
Yes,
That would include Dunsmuir.
yeah, because that's kind of the natural
Right.
cutoff.
Yeah,
So,
I see that.
I mean,
So
if they didn't,
anything,
if it was like a big thing, then fine, no, but it just makes sense because after talking to bylaw, they're saying they're also calling on a regular basis.
all right. I believe I did block party proclamation on your street last year on the south side of Dean. It was like shut off and there was a huge party going
Oh,
on.
it was one of our neighbors having a party for his little son.
Oh, that was,
Yeah, that's right, yeah,
And it
yeah,
was
that
just a
was,
small section, but
Yeah.
but it was super fun.
yeah, yeah, and actually they are, one of the letters that was, is from Mary, she's the one that actually had that.
Okay,
last
yeah.
one.
Anyway, great street, honestly.
Yeah.
It's a great place to live. Don't move. And it's interesting that you didn't know you were able to come talk to council. What's good for me to know,
yeah.
council know, because we try to make this portion of our meeting that accessible so anyone can come with their issues
Yeah.
and get follow-up. So spread the word.
Yeah, well, it
Sure.
was Dean that told us, wasn't it?
Uh,
With Dean?
I had
Dean
a,
Schick?
Yeah.
Is that his?
I
Yeah.
was, yeah, I had a long conversation. He's a very nice gentleman, and I was just saying, like, I don't know what to do, and like, I would like to talk to somebody, but I don't know where. So anyways, he kind of pushed me. He's like, I really highly suggest you do council. So then I did some Googling, and then Mike ended up calling me after I emailed, and we had a wonderful conversation as well. So
Good.
I think it's just, when you think about a city and the hierarchies and stuff, like, you don't realize, you just feel like you're not gonna get anywhere. And
Right.
you don't, where do you start is kind of what it is. So I'm not sure it has anything to do with just me being frightened.
No, it's good.
about the process, so.
I'm knocking on your door in a couple years to run for council.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, girls. Have a seat, because I think there's obviously some questions for our staff, and Dean Schick, who you just mentioned, is on Zoom.
Okay.
So
Oh, wonderful.
Dean, there he is. He's ready. He knows the questions. I'll start. You got some too, I assume. And Councillor Hughes does as well. Couple quick questions, Dean, and I just want to confirm that, is it Dunfield on the other side of Belrose? Dunfield, Dunfield Crescent, that does have the parking permits. They divided it between east and west? Okay,
That is correct. Yeah, that's correct. And we just, as of late in the last 2 weeks, had an actual application come in for the west side as well. So we're actually initiating a survey on the west side now. But for the last A few years, we've had it on the east side, closest to the school site.
Right. So I don't remember that ever coming to council for a request to split that street. So why would we need a council involvement to split north and south on Dean?
Yeah, maybe. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I can answer that directly. And the reason isn't necessarily to split. When we've been communicating and engaged with Dean Crescent residents for the last few years now, since 2022, I think was one of the first surveys. And during that process, we have the permit parking policy and process, which we follow. And it stipulates essentially some criteria around what's required to advance the program, around percentage of responses to the survey and then percentage of responses actually received in support. So there's essentially what it boils down to 3 key criteria: a minimum of responses to the survey, a minimum of support of responses received. And then we have another one, a third criteria that essentially says if 60% of overall houses in the area support, then we can advance permit parking based on those, if 1 is met or 2 is, or 1 or 2 are not met, then 3 can kind of jump in as criteria. So when we did the most recent engagement with Dean Crescent, we did do a breakdown already. We looked at the entirety of the area, separated Dunsmuir, the north of Dean, as well as the south.
So you could do the aggregate.
We went through everything in an effort, recognizing from what we heard in the engagement that we had with residents, where the issues were, and recognizing, just like we did with Dunfield, that, you know, those that are not influenced often will not agree to a solution, right? And so we looked at that and separated. And essentially at the end of the day, the reason that it's before council is it's actually, in all cases, the entirety of the area, as well as a separation north-south and Dunsmuir Court. None of the areas actually, although they were close, met the minimum criteria for a process and policy. So it's a deviation of a council policy if we enact residential permit parking.
Right. It reminds me of my question about Mission. You know,
Traffic calming is similar.
of
Yeah.
the speeding and the traffic on one street, but the whole neighborhood has an influence on the results. If we were to repeat the survey on just do Dunsmuir and Dean South, would that be an option? And you wouldn't even need council to.
Yeah, we could absolutely repeat the survey if the same results occur
Mhm.
that are below the and just to put it in context, I appreciate Holly and Tara's presentation because they're accurate. Like we were essentially on the south side of Dean Crescent, we met the minimum. The minimum is 70% of survey responses. We had 80%, so we met criteria 1. Where the issue is that only 61% of responses were support. So it's not a case that we didn't have enough votes. We never had enough support votes. And what it boils down to for the support votes, we were essentially 3 support votes shy. We had a total of 17 support where 20 would have met the criteria.
Okay.
Or for the third criteria of 60% of overall, we were 4 short. We had 17 and we would need 21 to reflect that 60% of overall homes.
And are you counting the south side of Dean?
That is strictly the south side of Dean. In separate, those numbers are all specifically separating to the south side only.
Okay. I don't know if you ladies had heard those numbers before you had you just need to get 3 more neighbors on side. Ah.
Put the nail on the counter, whatever, she didn't see it until after the time.
Okay.
That's why she wanted to bring it.
Okay. Good to know. Councillor McKay, I'll let you ask some questions and let's figure out how we can get through this.
Yeah, and hopefully I don't muddy the waters.
Generally, you do.
Have we, just a question, Dean, while you're up there, is there anything on the south side or of Giroux, like Lodgepole Crescent or Larondelle Court, have any of their
That's a good question.
districts, have they been impacted? Because you can still cut through on Lodgepole or you can cut through from the whole park system and the same goes.
And there's a lighted crosswalk from that pathway over.
So maybe, and might be MES that might need the question because bylaw would be responding, but are you aware of any concerns?
Through Madam Mayor, I am anecdotally aware of students parking on the south side of Giroux in the area, only not because of concerns raised or applications for permit parking that we've received. And I can't say I would need enforcement to respond to the question if they have been out on site due to any parking issues or reports of concern. But we haven't received any applications from residents, but we do know there's on average, what I would say in and around half a dozen vehicles that are parking on the south side of Giroux, right? Like, don't quote me on that number, but again, when I've been in kind of looking at the area, it's what we're seeing.
Everett, do you have anything to add to that?
I do, just some quick information, if I may, Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Mackay. We don't have the exact locations, but in preparation for today, we did pull some numbers from municipal enforcement. And year to date, there's a total of 33 files with 41 tickets issued in the immediate area with regards to parking violations. And then previous to that in 2024, there was 27 files with 15 tickets being issued related to this topic in that immediate area. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact locations of where they occurred, but that is the information MES was able to provide us for today's meeting.
But I think if I could, Madam Mayor, that's the entire area surrounding the high school, right? That's not specific to Lodgepole or across. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, just curious as to, like you mentioned that now the west side of, I forgot the address of it here, Dufferin, sorry. Dufferin is, and that's just something you received recently, you said, Dean? So, I mean, that could be an example of kind of the problem pushing out, right? So, the east side was permitted, and so the students went to the west side. So now that kind of maybe makes me a little concerned that if we don't do it all, we just squeeze the problem into another area.
Yeah, through Madam Mayor, absolutely. It is the case with parking. It's a supply demand issue. And I'll tell you what, if I ever come to a resolve of how to address parking issues outside of just additional supply or anything like that, that's a multi-million-dollar idea right there. But when you have restricted areas, especially when it's in short, close proximity, I mean, the simplistic answer of a user is that they just simply park on the other side of the sign that has restrictions the other way. So, we look to apply it, when we enter into the engagement with residents, that's why we engage with everyone in the area. We start there. And what we found is, of course, it's to some degree, the permit program is based on resident input and demand, right? So that's the service that we're trying to provide is to address the imminent issues or immediate issues from the residents' perspective. And unfortunately, it's one of those where if you have a program that utilizes a greater volume of input, then it can influence those that are highly impacted. And so that's where we started to break it down and recognize, and the example is on Dunfield where we had the east-west separation, our intent and action following with Dean Crescent as well to address where we thought the issues were occurring and where they were kind of being reported. And so, yeah, it does offer that, but then it does get the potential to push out does occur.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate factor. I guess, so my last question, I mean, these all have to be resident led, right? Our policy currently says this has to be resident. We don't lead the process. We don't start kind of going around knocking on doors or sending out letters saying, I mean, I'm just thinking part of the problem is the Belrose construction. I'm not sure what they have taken up for parking stalls, but yeah, it's making a problem in the neighborhood. So it's got to be resident led then.
That is correct. Yeah, we don't proactively go out and force permit parking on anybody. It's led by an application from people. The intent with the process itself, and it's daunting, and we are investigating it with mobility strategy on our current process itself and how it's applied. But one of the intents with having residents go and have that initial signature and survey to get the appropriate kind of recognition of demand is one, hopefully to identify and have neighbors come together to recognize an issue. And, you know, the intent is always good. I apologize to Holly and Tara for issues they may experience or what they had experienced, but in the program itself is before the city starts to apply resources towards it, we want to recognize that it's actually an issue that's recognized by residents in the area and that it's supported at the end of the day. And then we just confirm that support with a survey, and that's where we kind of take then from the subject to the response of the survey, we take the necessary actions in applying.
Thanks, Dean.
Councillor Broadhead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, ladies, for coming. It's always difficult, to be sure. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Mr. Schick, have we gone out to the construction site at Belrose to see just exactly if some of the problems are exacerbated by construction parking that was brought up? Is that a concern here?
To date, we haven't formally gone out and kind of assessed the site itself. I mean, we kind of recognize that it's a private development occurring, and we kind of, you know, what we look to do is our program is intended to focus on the results with the residents. But we haven't gone out and engaged with the school site or how their parking management plan is being implemented or integrated or any volume of outside like construction workers where they park or whatnot. We haven't taken that action.
Okay, fair enough. And to your point, Mr. Schick, it's either manage it or increase the supply. I haven't seen the layout of the Belrose expansion. Mr. Fletcher, are you aware if there's going to be any more parking available as a result of the addition?
Yeah, there's
to
more
the Belrose?
students. Is there more parking?
Well, I'm hoping, because if that happens, then this problem is just going to get bigger.
Yeah, I'm not aware of the exact numbers. I believe it's incremental, though. It's not a significant addition.
All
Any
right.
more questions?
I don't have any more questions. I don't have a solution though either.
Go door knock with them.
Yeah, I'll be doing some of that. All right. Thank you.
Councillor Killick.
Thank you, Mayor. If I could just maybe even take an unofficial response to Councillor Broadhead's question, but the half of Belrose's parking is taken up right now by the construction company offices and lay down yard construction area. So a good chunk of the existing parking will come back online once the construction is completed. But again, that's my uneducated, unofficial comment. But again, just to help a little bit, my question to administration would be that I believe we are undertaking a full parking policy review, and with some of the funding that we recently received, and maybe I just can confirm that that's on the to-do list.
As part of the overall look at land use across the city, we'll be looking at parking requirements holistically, yes.
And will that address kind of resident-driven restrictions?
I think it's probably a little bit too early to say if that would affect this particular policy right now, because this is more about where people park as opposed to the requirements for the amount of parking for development, as an example.
Okay, and thank you. And the other question, then I put in a request that we put a hold on accepting any new applications while that review is being done. Could you clarify what the status of that is?
I apologize, Councillor. Could you restate the question? I'm not sure I understood.
I had put in a request that the parking policy, no new applications would be accepted while we were doing the review. And
Did we accept that?
Yeah.
I don't remember that. I don't remember voting on that.
Okay, it sent an email requesting based on the original Dean
You'd have to.
application.
Okay,
Yeah,
we-
respectfully, without a motion, that's not going to happen.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it has-
Yeah.
If I can jump in, my apologies for.
Please go ahead,
interrupting.
Mr. Schick. Yeah.
If I can jump in for 1 second, we were aware and part of the response, and I kind of lightly mentioned it earlier, is that we are taking a policy and process review of our current residential permit parking with our mobility strategy. So the land use review and the parking requirements are a separate dedicated project looking at the demands and needs of development and the parking conditions or constraints. Whereas the mobility strategy is looking at this process, and to answer your question, direct, I believe at the time was, and it's still in the stage. So we're in the stages of delivering on the mobility strategy and performing those supplemental reviews of our current policies and processes, inclusive of the residential permit parking. There's a very light risk, as an example, of maintaining our applications as they go. It'd be essentially, by the time our anticipated timeline for completion of the mobility strategy is end of 2025, Q1 2026, we'll have an implementation plan that ultimately then will give us some time to modify the policy and process. And with our permit parking, should there be changes where sites exist now with permit parking, we would bring those changes in gradual, but we have a 1 to 2 year kind of review of areas. And then so we could, align and make sure that any update to the process is followed with potential impacts following on public engagement and whatnot with residents where it exists today. So low risk in continuing to run the program while we perform the review right now.
But having said that, to your point, that your resolution on December 17th, directing administration to review the residential parking permit policy and provide a recommendation. Q1 2026, I just want to make sure I get the date right, whether the policy rescinded or updated is absolutely extent direction that we're going forward, but there was no direction in there to cease current asks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And just on this new application for Dufferin, the entrance off of Giroux is called Dufferin, and I know that that's a heavily utilized area for parking because the no park or the restricted parking starts just after that point. Will that be included in the new west analysis that is done, that little entrance off of Giroux?
Thank you for your question through you, Madam Mayor. No, that won't be. So the intent with the residential permit parking is anything directly fronting or adjacent, or like not adjacent to, but fronting the homes. So that small segment is actually a very viable spot if if people are parking legally and not blocking an intersection, pedestrian crossing, proximity to the hydrant, again, parking legally is a very viable spot to allow on-street parking. And so that section, whether the west is supported or not for residential permit parking, won't have the permit parking applied.
Okay, great. Because the challenge is, and I appreciate that, that's good info. Just as a comment, it's kids need to find a place to park. They only go to school half a day. They
could take the
pick up
bus.
kids after they work.
It's free.
It's free. They work. They need to get to jobs. They need to do their thing. So at least they have somewhere to park. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm seeing no more questions from members of council. Path forward wise, I see either Tara and Holly go again and try to just maybe focus on the south and the one small place inside. Council motion could be done to change the policy, to change the thresholds, or just wait for the review. I think those are is that the kind of the options that you guys are seeing as well? Or a council motion to just waive the policy for this situation. That would be the third one. Probably not going to make that decision today. I'm sorry to tell you that. I'd like to say that we're an efficient government, but there's always this bureaucratic processes that just to make everything fair for everyone. So I think we're all aware of the situation now. Going to ponder it myself a bit too. You can always email me, it's just mayorheron@stalbert.ca. It's pretty easy. And I honestly think with just missing a by 3 houses, you could probably get it if you tried again, but we'll talk about it maybe a little bit, outside of the council meeting and see what we can do to help. But I appreciate you bringing it to our attention. The program is meant to help, not hinder, and I think it has helped in certain situations. And Dean, as you said, is amazing, and he will talk to you and listen to you and try to find solutions, but sometimes it's just out of his hands, and this one is out of his hands by just a hair. So anything further, council? Okay, let us move on in our agenda. I've got the policy here, sorry, the parking permit one, if anyone wants to have a look at it after. I'll show you what sections would need to be changed. Okay. That was business arising. Councillor Hughes, you feel like doing consent?
Okay, I got my thing here. I'm ready to go. That the recommendations in the following agenda reports be approved. 6.1, regular council meeting minutes, May 20th, 2025. 8.1, 10-year municipal RMR capital plan, and 8.2, 10-year utility RMR capital plan.
All right, call for the vote. Voting is closed, and that passes unanimously. I'm going to tell you all that Marta and I discussed this earlier, and we said we'd be out by 3. We did 1 hour on public presentations. Cannot start the public hearing till 2, which is in 9 minutes. I will read into the record what we just approved on consent. So, well, we did the minutes, and then we also did the 10-year municipal RMR capital plan, which essentially was that the 2026 to 35 municipal RMR capital plan provided as an attachment to June 3rd agenda report be approved, and that the following postponed motion be approved. It's PM 26005, that the 2026 municipal capital budget of 27 projects to be funded in the amount of $37,978, $978,100. And then we also did the 10-year utility RMR capital plan. Motion was that the 10-year utility RMR capital plan provided as an attachment to the June 3rd, 2025 agenda report be approved, and the following postponed motion be approved, which is PM 26006. That is that the 2026 utility capital budget of 9 projects be funded in the amount of $18,449,100. So those are done. I'm now going to let you guys all take a 7-minute bio break, and we'll start the public hearing exactly at 2 o'clock. All right, we have 1 minute till 2 o'clock, so looking for Counselor Broadhead and Killick. Do you need a laptop? There. Ah. I'm seriously just waiting for that thing to flip over to 2. All right, it is 2 o'clock. So I will call to order the public hearing on bylaw 16-2025. We have, council, as you know, the process. We're gonna get a presentation from administration. I'm assuming there's no conflict of interest for this one, seeing, yeah, no conflict of interest. We'll do the presentation from staff. You guys will have lots of chances to ask as many questions as you need. And then we have no registered speakers other than the proponent. Is that correct? Okay. I'll go to them, see if they have anything to say, and then they're available to answer questions. Once you guys feel comfortable, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing and we can vote. All right, so welcome to Chambers, you two. Who's doing the presentation?
That would be me,
All right.
Suzanne Rook. Good afternoon, council. My name is Suzanne Rook and I am presenting bylaw 16/2025 to amend the Schedule A of the land use bylaw. Sorry, I was trying to pin down the feedback. There we go. So bylaw 16/2025 is to amend Schedule A of the land use bylaw. This land is currently districted for future urban development district. And these amendments to the Schedule A will assign lane lot residential district, front back residential, and small lot residential district.
So just, sorry, I want to make sure Ledge reflects that Councillor Broadhead's not in the room. Okay. Oh, there he is. Okay. Okay. Keep going. Sorry about that, girls.
So redistricting of the land is necessary to enable subdivisions and future residential development. The location of this area is in the Sherrow neighborhood. It is on the west side backing onto Ray Given Drive. The St. Albert West Area Structure Plan designates that the future use of this land will be for neighborhood use. And the Sherrow neighborhood plan, as shown on the screen, identifies the area as low density residential. In the bylaw, you can see on the screen here, west to east, this assigns 1.97 hectares to lane lot residential, 1.20 hectares to front back residential, and 4.48 hectares to small lot residential. We also have for you a side-by-side of the current and the proposed. You can see that medium density moving north will transition to lane lot residential, and the front back residential and small lot residential just continue northwards. In summary, the recommendation is that the public hearing be closed, that bylaw 16/2025 be read a first time and a second time, and that unanimous consent be given for consideration, and that bylaw 16/2025 be read a third and final time.
Awesome.
May I answer any questions?
This seems pretty easy. Conforms with everything and just need to move it along. I have a unrelated question to this particular bylaw, but it is redistricting in Sherrow, like between where we're doing this bylaw and current development is the South Sherrow School site, correct? Is it the green?
So the
Yeah,
South Hill
the
School site
green
is that big
adjacent to
green
the area,
box.
yeah.
Yeah, so the development goes to where you can see streets and then this is kind of up, okay. And I know that application is in, is it not?
For the subdivision, Mayor Herron?
Yes.
Yes, the subdivision application is in.
Excellent.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I want to know. All right, open it up to questions. Counselor Jolly. She's eager to close a public hearing. Okay, when it comes to that, I will come to you. Any questions of administration? Go ahead, Gina.
Thank you. Just a quick question. So the front back to residential, what does that mean? Like, is it just, it's like, I know it says it could be single family or duplexes, but what does that mean?
My understanding is that because it has a lane on the back, you could have a duplex that faces forwards and backwards instead of side by side facing the main street. One would have an access to the back lane.
That's what I thought. I thought, and maybe I'm wrong, clearly I'm wrong, but I thought that we were only allowing that on corners, but we're allowing it all the way down the lane.
That's what we have, yes.
Okay. Is that what Edmonton's doing as well? They're allowing it the whole way down? Do we know?
We toured one. I think
I
you
know.
were there, weren't you?
But but it was a corner. That's why I'm trying to.
Don't know what Edmonton's doing.
No, we
Okay.
don't, sorry.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for our staff? All right, seeing none. Who do we have? I said Jim Kelo come into the Zoom and I've got Kyla Oatway. So is there any? Jim, there you go. Do you have a presentation or are you just here to answer questions?
No, I'm just here to answer questions, Mayor Heron.
Awesome. Okay, this is your chance, council admin, to ask the proponent any questions. Jim, you're off the hook. We have no questions. This is easy. I know you were sweating, weren't you? Okay, so last chance for questions before I go to Councillor Jolly to close the public hearing. We have no public, right? Don't have any. Okay. Yeah, I saw the backgrounds. No one seemed to respond. Go ahead, Councillor Jolly.
That the public hearing on bylaw 16/2025 be closed.
Perfect. Call for that vote. All right, public hearing is closed. That was a short one. Councillor Jolly, are you willing to keep going? I'd love it. Thank you.
So that bylaw 16/2025 being amendment 7 to land use bylaw 18/2024 be read a first time.
Okay, any comments? No, anyone else? Ken, is that you reaching? You're ready to vote? Okay. All right, I'll call for the vote on first reading. Voting's closed and that passes unanimously. Councillor Jolly, second.
That bylaw 16/2025 be read a second time.
Awesome. Call for the vote. I love these public hearings that Ledge can't keep up with how fast we're going. When he's closed, that's unanimous. Councillor Broadhead, do you feel like unanimous consent?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That unanimous consent be given for consideration of third reading of bylaw 16/2025.
Thank you. Call for the vote. Voting's closed. That passes unanimously, so we do have consent to move on to third reading. Councillor Jolly.
That bylaw 16/2025 be read a third time.
Call for the vote. Passes unanimously. All right, we're gonna see some new homes in Shuro. All right, now on my agenda, we have. I already read what was on consent. We have no emergence items, so agenda item 10 is council motion. So Councillor Hughes. Get you to read it into the record and then we'll open up for questions before I accept it.
So Mayor, before I give it, I have a question, so I know which
Just
one I
read-
want to do.
Oh, you might not move the motion?
Yeah, I might move my original.
Okay,
motion.
ask, because yeah, you might do, okay,
Right.
ask your question before you know what you're gonna do.
Okay, so I'm not sure who I need to talk to, so I'll look at you, Mr. Fletcher, to start. So the question I had was, I realized that there's the recommendation is the alternate motion for the 65,000. But we just approved over $6 million for asset management, maintenance and inventory. And I'm trying to figure out, like, there is a buffer in that as well. And this, in my opinion, would fall in that complete asset inventory program. So couldn't the 65,000 necessary come out of that already approved program?
I will let some folks come up here in particular. Perhaps I'll look at Mr. Slatt initially because I believe Donnie's away from an asset management perspective. But the program itself is to manage current assets, right, in terms of the overall tracking. So this would ultimately be a part of it, but I think they're two sort of distinct components. I don't know, Mr. Slatt, if you've got anything you wanted to offer. But
Yeah, I don't have anything unless Mr. Schick has anything to add on that.
Like, I'm just trying to figure out, like, there's a buffer in there. We always have at least 10% contingency in the total project, and it's a $6 million project. So that means that we've got over $500,000 in buffer zone. to handle things that you weren't expecting when the motion was approved, which could include adding gravel parking lots to it. So I'm just wondering if there's any possibility that we could include it, and then if you felt that you had to go over budget, come to council at that time for the package, as opposed to just putting extra 65 grand into it.
Mr. Schick, do you have any comments initially?
No, the only thing I would, through you, Madam Mayor, it would be, that's the specific scope of what that funding was applied to is with the MM software and the application, I think was the intent. Whereas this is more field level condition assessments of a dedicated, like an existing specific asset, not in a broader sense, the kind of policy and oversight that the MM represents. So it might be a bit of a gray area applicable to scope, but I would be cautious to throw it in specifically under that MM project.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Schick. Councilor, I just thought he just said very eloquently what I said very poorly.
Okay.
And so I understand 100% the logic in terms of what you're stating, but they are two distinct elements. Tracking the parking lots will certainly be part of our asset management, but the operational assessment, the RMR, the ongoing upkeep and maintenance is informed by the MM, but is not the same program.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor McKay.
Yeah, I guess the question can I pose the question before it's read in?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question is, so to administration right now, and I'm trying to remember when we were having this conversation, I believe Tim from Public Works spoke to the fact that right now we don't have existing standards as it relates to the condition of our gravel. We just kind of do it as an observation, and when we observe that they need to be leveled out or filled in, that's when we do that work. We just don't have ongoing, regular, scheduled maintenance or review. Is that adequate, or did I miss that?
No, that's my recollection. I think in simple terms of what was articulated. I know we do have Louise on. Louise, if you've got any commentary, please go ahead.
Coming. There we go. Through the mayor to Councillor McKay. We do have some regularly scheduled maintenance. So Lacombe Lake parking lot is every 10 days. That's when we're going. We would go more frequently if we needed, but the heavier use areas certainly require us to go more frequently. The gravel roads in the newly annexed area are done almost weekly. They're inspected, but they may be graded every few weeks, and then there's dust control done once every month on those gravel roads. So there are some things that are regularly scheduled, but the maintenance itself is to level it, to make sure there's enough gravel on the surface to fill any divots, pull the gravel that's come off the road into the ditch. We'll do that sort of regularly as needed, but it's the as needed that leads it up to interpretation.
Who maintains the Ball Diamond parking lot? Is that us that does that, or is that a contract we have with Samba? Is that included in the 16 parking lots that's in there? I just wasn't sure.
I may let Dean say for sure, but no, they do that as part of their leaseholder agreement.
Okay, thanks. I'm just curious as to why we wouldn't have it, but thanks.
You're good. Councillor Jolly.
Yeah, so kind of going back to Louise's comments, to me, it sounds like we have service standards, but they're just not kind of included in our normal service level inventory. Am I understanding that correctly, or?
I defer to Louise. I think so. Yeah, the service standard it's got to be functional, right? And you're right. It's not codified per se. And so again, Ms. Stewart, if please feel free to jump in and talk about that. But I think that's an accurate reflection. They aren't allowed to get to a position. The team would not allow them to get to a position when they were non-functional or certainly dangerous.
Yeah, and then through the mayor to Councillor Jolly, just to add to that, what we were working with Mr. Schick's group about is we do have a service standard, but the way these things are built, the engineering standards that need to go into to properly build the base of these roads, is sort of what I believe we're lacking a little bit, which is what Mr. Schick is trying to address. We maintain the surface. It may get to a point that we can no longer maintain it, at which point it needs to be rebuilt. And that was some of the struggles that we were running into with the volume of traffic and the weight of traffic that was happening on some of the gravel roads. So we're very good at band-aiding things and keeping them going for as long as we possibly can. It just may get to a point that we can't anymore and it's no longer cost effective and we need to rebuild it.
Thank you. And I guess, do we have contacts at Sturgeon County who would share kind of their service standards for gravel roads? I don't know if what the relationships are like.
I think any generally rural municipalities with long stretches of gravel roads, we've got good relationships with any number that I'm sure we would share. Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, would there be an opportunity to do that instead of an expensive project, I guess?
Mr. Schick, any thoughts on that? I think, again, parking lots, roads, sort of a little bit different, but.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Jolie, through you, Madam Mayor. Essentially, if I could separate the two, there's the service level standards, which we can kind of state again how we're responding to issues and what the proactive inspections and maintenance actions would be. But then there's a separation of specifications and standards, and absolutely, like around the Edmonton region, we'd reach out to other agencies and see what their rural cross sections look like in their specifications and look for industry best practice. But our engineering standards would be different than a service level. So it's the structure, what's being built compared to how it's being maintained and managed for a service level. So we capture the component of the service level, but not the engineering standards behind it. And just, you know, in all likelihood, I would imagine that since the time of the gravel, you know, the structures being constructed, practices at this point, I can't even definitively say the structures are in line with current standards of other agencies, because we haven't really gone through a formal process of identifying to what degree, what their structure is, how they've been constructed, what their design is to date. We don't have that background information. We're collecting for gravel roads, but we don't have that for gravel parking lot structures or anything like that. So there's that separation between the specifications and standards compared to a service level. And I think we'd be able to achieve the service level, but we'd be lacking in the specifications.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Councillor Broadhead.
So thank you, Mr. Schick, for going where I wanted to ask you. So service standards are one thing, but engineering standards are others. I can't imagine that engineers haven't put together a book of how you build gravel roads, the base, the gravel, the size of the gravel, all of those things. Do we have, is that what this 65,000 is for, is to go out and examine exactly what's in place and how we upgrade, or what is that 65,000 by?
Thank you, Councillor Broadhead, through you, Madam Mayor. It is exactly that. So there's a component that we could just apply other agency standards and specifications, whether it's for gravel parking lots or gravel roadways. And then we have a documented standard and specification, and then we can develop a service level. What the issue becomes then is to confirm whether your assets in the field actually conform and meet the current standard that we just developed. And I wouldn't be able to confidently say to any council member that for sure we've created these standards and specifications that our assets meet. And so if we want to develop an overarching asset management plan for these assets, separating gravel roadways from gravel parking lots, what we would need is kind of a holistic kind of process, one to which we can identify our current condition levels, do the inventory, recognizing that as we develop standards and specifications, we can then apply what are the current conditions and what remedial work or actions need to meet those standards and specifications, and then have an actual asset, like an RMR program that maintains them and is supported through public operations for the service levels to ensure that on the day-to-day activities, the structures are being maintained and kept for functionality, safety, and operations.
Okay, that's where I thought this was going. So thanks for that clarification. I mean, you take a truckload of gravel, you throw it on the ground, and all of a sudden you got a gravel parking lot, but you really don't have a gravel parking lot. What you got is a piece of ground with some gravel on it. And so I'm assuming where this will take us is to understand exactly the design standards that we want to build and what we want to maintain in our community for our gravel parking lots. Is that what this is all about?
Thank you, Councillor Broadhead. That is an excellent comment to say. When you design something, it's not a simple case of just applying like the gravel structure itself. You want to look at what type of loading you expect, the functionality of it. And then even, what's our design standard that we want to achieve? What a life expectancy, what are we expecting out of the investment when we put in that asset, whether new or maintaining it to get its life expectancy? And so you're absolutely right. You want to look overall to say, what are the demands in a local context for these assets? And then what's the expected function, all the considerations of life expectancy, and will inform on the design, right? And that's what we're looking to develop with these assets.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right. Councillor Killick, there's a lot of questions here today.
Could I just ask what the clarification of, it says in the administration understanding is that it's both private and public development. What would, like, I'm thinking that this motion started by parking lots, list of 16 that were city-owned, public. Why would this, could you explain what the branch is to applying this to private and give me an example or two of what that would mean and why we're going beyond what the original ask was, I think?
Thank you, Councillor Killick, and through you, Madam Mayor. Quite simplistically, it's when we apply our municipal engineering standards, they're applied to both public and private development. So our own standards, we meet our own standards when we develop and invest in assets or construct assets or design. We would expect the same thing on the private side. Now, out of fairness with the land use bylaw, we don't anticipate, I'm not suggesting that we're going to see a lot of gravel structures being built. However, we recognize in today's world that we may see temporary structures being constructed. And as everyone knows, the pace of development may be expedited or it may take a little bit of time. So if in the event a structure was required and it was a temporary gravel structure, we'd at least have a design in place and a specification in place. Specifications, I should say plural, are in place that protect the overall, the city's accountability for that structure being designed and constructed.
Okay, thank you. That totally makes sense. And I must admit, couldn't get there by myself, so I appreciate the answer. And the other one, just to follow along, is that this would set specifications that could say, for example, Lacombe Lake parking lot is built on a clay base. We do the standard, we do an analysis, and then it would come back and say, oh, to meet our standard, we have to dig up that parking lot and put in way more gravel, get rid of the clay. We would have a better gravel parking lot to a new standard. But this could lead to a whole bunch of other budget requirements to bring up our city parking lot, gravel parking lots to our new standard. And am I reading that right?
Thank you, Councillor Killick, through you, Madam Mayor. I think the intent would be any substantial construction or repair work would seek to achieve our new, meet our standards of the date, most up-to-date standards. That being said, public operations, again, when they come in and maintain something, they're maintaining it to the service level, anticipating that it meets said specifications and design requirements. So it wouldn't necessarily be, I would suggest this, that with a new standard, it may not mean that immediate proactive RMR work is taken to reconstruct all structures, but if we document and have evidence that suggests that public operations, our annual expenditures of maintaining a site are becoming over the value of what the reasonable and feasible cost of investment to improve would be. And we'll see better life and lower investment over time, better cost effectiveness. I think that's where administration would develop that work program and work through an RMR project to deliver that.
Thank you.
You guys are cracking me up. Lots more questions. Councillor Hughes.
No, you open Pandora's box, right? Two questions. So I'm gonna ask the one that, like, you're Dean right now. So my information request about Lacombe Park Lake and Botanical Park, and I think you're the one who answered it. Yes, excellent. So this is kind of a follow-up, I guess, to Councillor Killick. You know, if it said it didn't meet standards, then council can have a discussion. Are we going to gravel or are we going to do asphalt? And what I'm trying to figure out is, so the gravel is 1.7 million and the asphalt was 2 million. And with the asphalt, you get paving, curb, gutter, utility, storm management work. So it would appear that it's like the same price, like except like just adding on 300,000 or 200,000 for all the extras of the curb and storm, et cetera. It almost appears that it's cheaper to put asphalt down just on a per basis than you'd get if you have gravel. Like it seems like it wouldn't be cost effective. It seems to me that if it said we needed to redo it, we would not be doing gravel. It would make more sense just to go and do asphalt because you don't even have the maintenance, ongoing maintenance of asphalt that you do with gravel. And I'm trying to, why is it so close in price between gravel and asphalt? That was my question.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes, Madam Mayor. I think a lot of it again is the substantial proportion of cost associated with doing the base work and whatnot. That's a big cost associated with the overall, and that's relevant to the scope. But the reconstruction of a gravel structure, or then the additional, with paving, you're adding the paving structure and some concrete infrastructure. But in a parking lot scenario, we're not talking about a high quantity, I should say, where you expect a high quality, but quantity won't be there. So that's why the cost gets a little bit closer. And this is one of the reasons why when we look at a strong development of an asset management program, the considerations of maintaining the gravel parking lot structure as it is would be investigated and assessed compared to any necessary improvements. And so when we go in and we do the condition assessments and developing the maintenance program, it might be identified to say exactly that if you look at an overall reconstruct, the value might be there for a short term. You're saving a little bit of the upfront costs, but the investment in I'll call it a higher upgrade, like a paving, might be actually worth it over time, but that may be dependent on the site conditions, the individual sites, and would be developed through that strategy development.
Yeah, thank you for that. One more question. I don't know if it's you or someone else needs to answer it. So we said about our standard is to grade it, I'm going to call it fluff it up every 10 days. How do we do that? Because there's typically cars at some point in the parking lot almost all the time. So is it done at nighttime, or how do you accomplish being able to do that on such a regular schedule?
Oh, thank you. And I see Ms. Stewart's already jumped up. I'll defer to her. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councillor Hughes. Through the mayor, we have crews on usually quite late. So when they are doing Lacombe, because it's been assessed during the day, they will go in either late at night or exceptionally early in the morning. We work around residents all year round, so we will find a way to go in, and we do quite regularly.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm just curious. That's it. Thank you.
Councillor Romanski.
Thank you. And thank you to administration, particularly Louise, for telling us how often you're out there and how thorough you are with your service. My question for administration is, putting these ideas forward, are we being too prescriptive in your service standards? Because it seems like you have them covered, with the dust settling and the gravel and the checks. And would it also not be obvious if there's a problem with a specific gravel area?
Yep, please go ahead, Louise. Thanks.
Yeah, so through the mayor, thank you, Councillor Romanski. It's not necessarily that you're being too prescriptive. We have our standards which say we keep it to a nice driving surface and etc. where Mr. Schick's comment about is when we maintain something, we assume it was built to a certain standard. We ran into issues with some of the rural roadways recently, the 255, and that in the spring, when you get the snow melt, when you get the heavy traffic on, you get the moisture, we couldn't keep up with it, and the residents got really quite concerned and voiced their opinion to you guys. But so it does get to a point that we maybe need additional help, and that's where we spoke to Mr. Schick, and we were looking for an RMR program that can do a bit more than what we do. Yeah, I can put gravel on it all day. It still doesn't necessarily stop it from falling apart if it's not built properly. And so we're trying to just get to a standard where we know it was built, because then we know how to maintain it. Doesn't mean to say it won't cycle itself out at some point, but at least then we know how to maintain it and that it was built properly.
Okay, so through your service method, it is quite obvious where help's needed. That's okay. That is
Yes, and given the time of year and the traffic that maybe we weren't anticipating being on that road, the size of vehicles, how frequently it's used, those are all things that we're learning now on some of the roadways that we've sort of inherited. Lacombe Lake, we know, is always very busy. It's a very popular site, so that's why we've got a regular schedule to go in there.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
That's it for questions. Councillor Hughes, have you decided if you're gonna move
Yeah.
your original or the alternate?
I'll do the alternative motion.
Okay.
Dean talked me into it.
Up to 60?
Yeah, we can say up to. So we're going to change the second word to up to. Okay, Renee? So that up to $65,000 is approved and funded through the stabilization reserve to have the municipal engineering standards updated to include specifications for gravel road and parking lot structures and level of service standards developed for each and sent to council for consideration of approval. This recognizes this, and that's it, period, right? We don't need the rest of it, says this recognizes, will it? Do you want that? Sure, we can throw that in there. This recognizes the standards will align to best practices of asset management and applicable repair, maintain, and replace RMR project charters that will be developed for the implementation of established service levels.
Okay, accept that. Go ahead.
Okay. This to me seems like a very straightforward motion as far as need goes. This, for some, whatever reason, this fell through the cracks of our previous standards of having it, and I think that's something we need to have. This came on because we were having discussions about paving Lacombe Park Lake parking lot. And then what we realized was that there weren't actual standards for triggers of when it needs to be reevaluated for repaving or upgrading for that parking lot. So from there, I feel like this is just something that needs to be done. Is it super sexy? Probably not. Gravel parking lots don't generally come up in conversations at dinner parties. However, this is something that I think is, it's an asset that is being used both by our staff and by public in various parking lots and various roads, and it needs to be done. In addition, with the annexation, we acquired many more kilometers of gravel roads that we need to be able to service and maintain and make sure that we're doing it to the proper standards. So to me, this is just something that we were told that we need to have a council motion to include it. And so this is a council motion to include it. I feel that this is, in many ways, this is a no-brainer to me that this just, it's something that, considering that we have every other asset, we have service levels down to the hours of service for every single thing we have. And we have assets managed for every single other item that I'm aware of, that gravel roads and parking lots need to be also included in that. That's it. Thank you.
Anyone else on debate? Okay, seeing none, I will call for the vote. Pardon? Okay. Voting is closed, and that passes by majority with Councillor Killick opposed. All right. Back to the agenda. Anyone have any information requests, notice of motions or announcements? I don't think we had any emailed in. Me? Oh, Jesus. Which one did I have?
I'll put it in the Zoom chat for you, Mayor.
It's traffic calming.
Oh, do you guys have it? Thanks. It's like the Dean Schick show today. This one, the parking, and now my notice of motion. Okay, it's in the chat. Hold on. What would it take, policy or bylaw wise, to move the traffic calming away from neighborhood surveys and into our engineering standards? This is now established and proven good practice, and every neighborhood in the city should be able to take advantage of these measures. All right, so that's a IR. Okay. Anyone else? Anything new? Okay, seeing none. Oh, you got one?
I just want to ask, are we ready for tomorrow night?
Yes, Council.
You got there's an email in your inbox about where the screen will be parking. Thank you for the park and ride. I didn't know you guys were going to do that. That's awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
That's all kudos to the team, the
I
events
know.
team. Yeah.
You were on vacation the whole time.
I just want to let the public know, because I'm sure we have millions of people watching right now to know we're ready
Well,
for
it's
tomorrow night.
in your inbox is a IR or a,
Yes.
a memo. There's a link to the page on our city website, so share it with your social media.
Totally. I just wanted staff to say, we're ready.
We are 100% ready, Councilor.
Absolutely.
And go Oilers, go.
Yeah, they're going to win this in 6. When I said 6, I didn't mean last one. I actually meant they win the cup in 6.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So clarity, this is what's going to happen. Game 1, let's go.
All right, I need a motion to go in camera. And we'll finish off this meeting with Mr. Fletcher says he's got very little to talk about, so we'll just do a quick in camera and then we can go home. Thank you, Councillor Joy. Go ahead.
The council move in camera to have a confidential dialogue with the CAO pursuant to section 24(1)A of FOIP.
Awesome. Call for the vote. Voting's closed. We're in camera. No talking to anyone.